Aperture.
Hello, thank you all for joining us. My name is Nicole Chumpong. I'm the assistant editor at Aperture magazine. And for those of you who are not familiar with Aperture, it was founded in 1952 by a group of artists, writers, and curators as a common ground for photography. Aperture today is a multi-platform publisher that unites the photography community in print, in person, and online. Our program tonight is part of our ongoing, decades-long partnership with the photography program at Parsons School of Design. Parsons BFA and MFA programs in photography provide diverse and rigorous platforms for students to engage in a cross-cultural and social justice-based experience that prepares them for the global context into which they will graduate. We are thrilled to continue this partnership with them. Aperture would also like to offer deep gratitude and respect to the Lenape peoples, past, present, and future. We, as an organization, acknowledge that Aperture is on the island known as Manahata in Lenapehoking, the Lenape homeland. We would also like to encourage everyone watching to engage with and learn from the Indigenous communities whose ancestral territories you are currently tuning in from. Through our publications and public programs, Aperture is committed to supporting Indigenous photographers and photographers whose work contributes to dismantling colonial legacies. Tonight, we're excited to host our third panel in a series of programs celebrating the fall issue of Aperture, Native America, with Martine Gutierrez and Nadiah Rivera Fellah. In Gutierrez's 2018 project, Indigenous Woman, she created a 124-page art publication playing the roles of photographer, stylist, creative director, editor-in-chief, and featured model. In this discussion, our panelists will take an in-depth look at the project and navigating contemporary indigeneity. And please join us next Thursday at 7 p.m. as we continue this program series with a conversation between Alan Michelson and Christy Isles. And now to introduce our esteemed guests, Martine Gutierrez is an American visual and performance artist. She is known for creating works that interrogate the formation, expression, and perception of identity. Acting as subject and producer, the artist has created music videos, billboard campaigns, episodic films, live performances, and satirical advertisements that juxtapose the consumable with the genuine. Her artworks have been exhibited in galleries and museums worldwide, including in the Central Pavilion at the 2019 Venice Biennale. Nadiah Rivera Fellah is a curator at the Cleveland Museum of Art. Previously, she served in various capacities at the Newark Museum in New Jersey, where she curated the celebrated exhibition, Wendy Red Star, A Scratch on the Earth, and served as the primary author and editor of the accompanying catalog. Fellah specializes in Latin American and global contemporary art. Her other published works include Graciela Iturbide's Cholo Chola's series, Images of Cross-Border Identities, in the journal History of Photography, and Mining the Maniacs, in Wendy Red Star, The Maniacs. Fellah received her BA in Art History at Oberlin College, Ohio, and in 2019, she completed a PhD at the Graduate Center, City University of New York. Lead support of the Native America issue of Aperture magazine is provided in part by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Henry Luce Foundation. Further generous support is provided by the Philip and Edith Leonian Foundation and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. Significant support of Aperture magazine is provided by the Kanakia Foundation. And for a limited time, Aperture is offering a discount on subscriptions and single copies of Native America. You can use the discount code in the chat to receive 30% off Native America and follow the link to become a subscriber. Finally, we'll be answering audience questions towards the end of the evening, so please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'll now turn it over to our two great speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you to everyone at Aperture for inviting me. And thank you, Martine, for being a part of this conversation. It's so good to see you.
Of course. You look.
I have to thank Wendy Red Star for guest editing this amazing issue and for inviting me to be a part of it and bringing all of us together into this much needed and timely conversation.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. If you're watching, which I think she is, she told me that she was excited to watch ours, which made me feel like, oh God, we have to deliver something extraordinary, which is, you know,
Which we will.
we will.
Well, I am so excited to have this object. Now it's like in every,
No.
yeah, this is such a beautiful object and so stunning to
I
see.
just bought one.
So I saw today that you went to the media stand and picked it up, which was genius because you were able to see it in a mediascape. Do you want to talk about just like that moment of seeing yourself as the cover girl amongst all of the other magazines?
Well, it's funny. People have been joking that this feels like this project, Indigenous Woman, has had so much longevity because it's already had a few covers. Obviously not this image and nothing from this series, which is why this is so exciting. But it's true. I was like, wow, I really just made images, like made to consume images, like images for a cover, images for an advertisement, images that are, you know, that there's something that reads quite quickly and is hopefully memorable. But it's just funny that they would actually exist and actually be validated by a publication that I'm not pretending exists, and that I'm personally not distributing.
Right.
But I think it's funny because I can see it it doesn't quite feel contemporary in a way because this work was made or like came out in 2018, but I shot this image in like 17, 16, maybe 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014.
It was kind of the earliest of the Indigenous Women series.
Yeah, it was one of the beginning editorials, one of the first editorials. And it just, I don't know. Now, I don't know. I don't love it the same way, but I think it looks so good as a cover.
Well, can we get the next slide, Scarlett? So I want to talk about going through the magazine, which it's interesting that you bring up the contemporariness of it now, because as you're looking through the magazine, there's like the previous spread is this photographer, Dwayne, his name, Dwayne Linklater, and he has a spread where he's using the last Aperture Native America issue, which is from 1995.
Wait, what page?
This is on page 44. And his project for this issue was that he took that previous issue, which was titled Strong Hearts, Native American Visions and Voices, which leaves much to be desired. And he takes it and scans a lot of the images and marks them and uses them in like this collage type element. And so the last page of his spread, he has used the table of contents of that 1995 issue.
Oh.
And you kind of look at it and it's just so underwhelming, some of the titles of these spreads from that issue. And you turn the page and it's this image that we have on the slide, and it's just this piercing kind of confrontational gaze from this really monumental figure. And I feel like that page turn is really everything about this issue. It's just this moment in time, like truly turning the page from that last assessment of Native America by Aperture magazine into this present moment. And this like look that you're giving, which says so many things.
Yeah, it's very, I think there's something there, like you can tell that I have nostalgia for National Geographic. Like there's very much like stop taking my picture as an energy, which is like, which you see like, and you won't understand unless you've kind of studied and been on both sides of tourism.
Right. There's such like, yeah, the energy of stop taking my picture. There's kind of like a reprimanding look in the gaze where it's just like, come along, like, come on, we've been waiting for you. And this entire issue is kind of about pulling folks forward and becoming a source book for Indigenous thoughts and ideas and practices and pulling folks forward. And that's, I think, what it epitomizes with just this is like such a genius spread.
Oh, thank you. I love it. I haven't had a chance to look through everything. My mom was like, you have to read your interview before you have this. And I was like, Mom, I don't have to do any. I'm like, I'm a grown up. But then I was like, she's right. She's right. I have to read our interview. And I was kind of crazy because it was so long ago.
Right. It was kind of coming right into, I remember it was coming right into lockdown, and you had been moving into other projects. You were in Chile.
Yeah. Doing
video work.
I'm like, did I tell you I wasn't allowed to talk about it, or did I can't remember. I was doing video work. Yeah. Video work.
And then you were kind of pulled back, and you know, I remember you said it feels like Indigenous Woman is a million years ago, and here it has such new life and
it's
another moment.
It's an honor. This is so beautiful, like just as like an encompassing reach, like in every direction. And I still kind of feel like I shouldn't be the cover. I'm like, girl, I'm just like some American. But work. I feel blessed.
Let's go to the next slide and see if we have any thoughts. So do you want to talk a little bit about this series, which I think is some of the most arresting images in the spread?
I honestly feel like people don't really you love this one. I feel like this, I saved this box that I'm holding. I got this box in high school because we did like fruit drives to raise money for like trips and stuff. And I just thought this box was gorgeous for some reason. And it has a little check mark on the side that says Guatemala. And I was like, identify. And so I like squirreled it away in my room and just had shoes in it. And then I brought it to like my dorm in college and like put junk in it and then dragged it back home. Like I just wouldn't recycle it. And then after this picture, I was like, okay, like I understand now why I had to hold on to it.
It fulfilled its destiny.
Yeah, it's like she became a character. She created a story just as like this one kind of accessory. You know, her purse. this is her purse.
I love it. How about the next slide? And then another thing that we talked about a little bit was like the dolls and all of the like peddled kind of goods that are used throughout a lot of these spreads. You want to say anything about those?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with dolls. I've always been obsessed with the dolls. These are American Girl dolls for anyone that is familiar with American Girl dolls, I think it's pretty obvious, but you can see Addie, and like low-key, each doll has comes with a book. And I think as a thing, they're meant to kind of get girls to be interested in like reading. They're definitely they're called American Girl dolls. They're definitely marketed towards girls. So it was a big deal. It was controversial that I had like more than one of these, to say the least. Like, I could have been a very creepy adult and just continued to collect dolls my whole life. But instead, I've let people see that I love them. I'm not ashamed. Yeah, Addie. Yeah, Addie, her story was that she was like, I mean, low-key a slave, which is like now fully problematic. She wouldn't be allowed to happen in that way. And then I think the girl that has the mask on, that's a 3D print of my face, but in miniature, that I painted, which sent my friend Kate Fox's house. Kate, if you're watching this, thank you for taking care of it. And that's covering Josefina, which was like, you know, our Latinx doll.
Right. Belated.
Yeah, so late. I was obsessed with her. She had little hoops. She had teeth showing because they know we have messed up teeth. We got big teeth, girl. We love corn. I feel like there's like, I don't know, like the girl actually who's laying down in the red kind of like cha-cha dress, she is actually, that was like a handmade doll dress that's not from American Girl doll. And she was one of those ones where you could make a doll that looked like you.
Right. Which was also a very late edition.
Yes.
Girl brand.
And I was like, well, I have to try that. Please, mom, please. And she was like, okay. And she obviously was before Josefina, because Josefina was like, duh. And this girl, it was like the most olive complexion I could get, like the darkest hair and the darkest eyes. And everyone thought she was Asian, which it makes sense in a way. Like, my dad always got Asian. People always thought he was Asian, which I think is interesting. Like in terms of, like, I feel like there's like a reality in which you can go like indigenous in like Central America, or even, yeah. I feel like it starts to go kind of like Korea. Like you can't tell where anyone is from. And there's like this kind of like meshing of like like you're like, where were these tectonic plates? Where were these like bridges connecting these plateaus where like before we had named ourselves as something else?
I know, it's colonialism. It has created such a melting pot. Do you want to go to the next slide? And the advertisements throughout this, I love that one of these is included, these identity boots.
Yeah. I think this is like a crowd fave advertisement. And I feel like it's like, because there's like a little bit of Cher, there's a little bit of like, somehow there's a little bit of The Graduate. I don't like, maybe it's her face. Like there's something kind of like cougar supermodel about her. Or is that just me?
Definitely. Well, it's interesting that you call it her face because it's your face.
Is it? I'm like, is that my face? I feel like in most of these pictures, I like just fully dysphoric. Like I don't recognize who that person is. And in some ways, I don't know if photography is really a medium to capture truth. Like I think that I think it's probably a little more vulnerable to do that with video, because in video there's this at like every vantage point is no longer frozen, and so you don't get this like moment in which something kind of can become something else. And in video, you see that moment in time, you see it like appear and disappear. And I think I think that's probably why right now, like I'm like much less interested in photography. Cause I was kind of, I don't know. I'm like, why did I have to have so much control? Like, why did I have to do this alone for 4 years? But also, I mean, I kind of know why, and we talked about why, you know, to kind of, if this is the one place to have control over my narrative, or to have kind of autonomy over my image and how my image is used to create allyship, or, you know, sell something for someone. I might as well decide, I say who, I say when, you know, we're all prostitutes. We're all the Pussycat Dolls singing "Loosen Up My Buttons."
Well, you talked about it also as like self-affirmation, kind of wanting to meditate on your own image and carve out a place for yourself. And, you know, the result is this 120-page magazine where your image is page after page after page after page. And so it was successful in that you affirmed, it was self-affirming and solidly carved out a place for yourself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It was like, it was a little trick, and it worked. It worked. I'm in. Or am I? I love this. This is one of my favorite images still.
Why? I mean,
because it feels like there's a little part of like, I don't know, of all my heroines in it, or something. Like the pants my sister made, and she made for herself, and I stole them. I mean, they were lost from her, and and they fit me, and I'm like tiny, so I'm just like, it was, thank you, Amalia, if you're watching. But also, yeah, it just felt like, of course they have to be like immortalized, you know? And the cat is my mother's, and I couldn't get him out of the picture. He literally was like, he was a kitten then, and like just a little brat. And it was like, there were so many variations of this pose with him also in different poses. And so picking this image, I actually had to consult what he was doing. And I just like the geometry of it, especially with him. It's this extra little line. And then the blouse was my grandmother's. So it's, I don't know, it's like a little bit of all the ladies. And then I'm kind of this like, I think if anything, my drag is closer to like how my sister would do her makeup, you know, going to the club in the 90s, and like the big hoops and the lip liner, and I don't know, when everyone used to pluck their eyebrows, and yeah, I don't know. It's like,
curl their bangs.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, it's, yeah. It just, I'm like, wow, that's beauty. Like to me, I'm like, that's like it for my nostalgia of growing up around glamour. This was like the glamour that I was closest to.
Right.
It felt like tangible.
And then there's this series. So it's like very Mad Max, like post-apocalyptic.
This picture, my friend Cynthia was there, and what it was doing these looks. This is from the Queer Rage series, and or like editorial, I should say. They're all this kind of like that first one you showed with like the feathery like collar necklace, like the palm leaves. It's like about like doing too much. Like, it's like that adolescence of, at least for me, of like being emo and like wanting to create controversy innately because you're just like, everything is so unfair. Like the world sucks and everything is unfair, and you really feel misunderstood. Everyone is misunderstood. Everyone is an outsider, even when they're popular. You know, it's like, and this is very much who I was. Like, this was like me being punk. This was like how I did like being punk. Like, just like the armor of like an accessory and makeup and like dyeing my hair and but it creates quite a stir. Like, you forget, like, all of these pictures were actually, I had video at one point and I was going to show it because it created like its own kind of performance, but it wasn't supposed, like, that wasn't a part of the work for me. I had to be like, okay, now ignore everyone and like create a picture. Okay.
Well, yeah, that made me want to talk about locations too, because you really didn't when you shot all of the spreads for Indigenous Women, you weren't like getting permission to shoot anywhere. So I like that, in the sense that it's like this guerrilla style seizure of space within the media world. It was also physically a seizure of space where you kind of went in to places where you wanted to shoot yourself, and just kind of took control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think guerrilla is actually how I make everything, even in places where I've gotten some amount of permission. Like, I'm always like, can I do that too? Like, can I touch this? Can I use this? But like, that question is like a facial expression and an action that like later might be a repercussion, or you know, but usually it's fine. And I was talking about this earlier with a friend, like, I have this appetite for risk and I don't know where it comes from, but it's like an impulse that I think is now I'm able to recognize more, and hopefully it, you know, doesn't ever get me in trouble.
I think a little trouble is okay.
Thank you for saying that.
So these are images that were also from the Indigenous Woman series, and from like probably, I think it was the most recent of that series that you made, which was the Body Enthrall series.
Yeah.
These are installation views from Venice, and this is a series that you've continued to work on.
Yes.
Sorry.
So yes. So this I think is my favorite out of all of them. Not that that matters, but because it's the most recent, it just feels the closest to where I'm at psychologically. And yet I honestly feel like light years away from this person. Like, this person in this photograph, like, this to me was huge. That I was like in front of the camera with no makeup, like, just like gooey, you know, just like wet. And it felt, I don't know, I really felt like I was revealing something, and yet whoever that person was, I'm not them anymore. And so I think that's what I'm kind of realizing. You kind of can't overshare in a way, because there's always something on the horizon, or like change. There's always change.
Well, that's a good segue into talking. We talked a lot about, this is one of my favorite images from the Indigenous Woman series. And actually was like the hook of the image that made me go see the show at Ryan Lee Gallery.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, why?
I think we talked about this. It was just like, so I was like, who's this woman? Like at the time, it was 2018. It was like, she kind of looks like Kim Kardashian. Like, what is this image? You're like so weightless. It's like, what is this show? I have to go see it. And even when I stepped into the gallery, it was like, still mysterious. I was like, is this all the same person? Is it like, what is going on? It was just such an overwhelming, like, it was like a media mogul, like clearly had dominated the space.
I do remember you saying this because I remember feeling like success. Success. It was worth it. The spell was working. And now you know the truth.
I don't know if I even know the truth because I still don't know how you took this image. We may never know.
With the timer.
Secrets.
With the timer and with the sun. This is actually natural light. And if you look at the other ones, there's these really sharp shadows. And I actually was really worried that this wasn't going to feel like it was attached because it was so soft. It's so like, I don't know, it's weird that it's like bright and yet everything is kind of like even. It feels like studio. But it was just like a cloud. It just happened to be like a cloud that wouldn't get out of the way for a while. And then I kept shooting and I thought, okay, now we have it. But it ended up being the moment that I was trying to like avoid that I used, which, I mean, that's a metaphor. That's a metaphor for all of you. Okay.
And you really don't get that these are mannequins in this entire series.
Wow.
Until you look very closely. So
right. They're just too beautiful. Is that how you know? What gives it away for you that they're not real?
Actually, until I spoke with you, I had to look back at all of the images and realize that every single figure that wasn't you was a mannequin. What? Yeah, because there's such a treatment and an interaction with them on your part that like imparts life on them.
Thank you. Honestly, getting myself to look, like proportionately aspirational was like the first challenge, right? Like don't breathe and yet elongate everything and look really relaxed. And then the second half is like, how do I pose them in a way that gives movement or gives an impression that there's a narrative, that they're thinking, or that they're cautious, or they're into me, or
Yeah. Success. Well, this would be a good segue into also talking about virtual space versus, this is like, that was Venice Pavilion was a IRL show, and now we're living in a world where everything is virtual. Yep. And so much of our lives are lived through social media, or were lived through social media before, and now it's like really dialed it up. The fact that most people are in isolation, or not seeing each other as much as they used to. And you and I spoke a little bit about social media and how you use them, how you think about social media. And my question for you had been, do you see your artwork as an extension? Do you see your social media as an extension of your artwork? Or a representation of you as an artist?
Yes. I'm like, yes, next question. Absolutely. Like everything's performance. Everything's performance. There's and having Instagram or having any of these channels, I actually was considering yesterday making a Twitter. I've never tweeted anything before, and I feel like I would have like at least like a few good tweets. But I don't know, it just feels like so much work. I use a metaphor with the gallery to like talk about social media, which is like, it is the garden, and like any garden, it needs TLC. Like it's working with an algorithm that needs you to interact with it, you know?
Right.
And so if you're not, it's kind of like networking in a way. But it's not fruitful if you're not pulling weeds and watering and, you know, showing up sometimes. And I think that we're all so hyper aware that we're curating ourselves, and we're all so aware of like our references to who we are, right? That there's kind of this there's kind of no way to be truly authentic anymore. Duh, 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 duh.
Right. And we talked a little bit about making it on social media in terms of like getting a status or creating work.
Yeah.
And your next show will be online.
My next show is going to be online. It's true. It's going to
How do you
be,
feel about that?
I'm excited because it means there's this kind of, there's this kind of like seedy element that like people can watch, and there's no record of it. You can attend without really attending. You know, it's kind of like I think this is actually kind of like, I'm like very fascinated what is happening right now. The fact that we can see how many people are like participating down there, right? And yet we don't know who they are, or maybe like Aperture knows who they are, but we don't, and we can't
We
see.
know who they are.
Right. And it's like, what are they doing? What are you doing watching us? Like, how are you watching us? And what are you getting from this? Like, you know, what's your reason for coming here? And I think with a gallery show, there's always like an element of voyeurism, because I mean, as an artist, when you have a show, I'm so fascinated to know how people are perceiving the work, and there's no real way to do it, or there's no way like being there physically and seeing people. That feels like the most real, and now I can't do that anymore.
Right. Yeah, there is a little bit more of a voyeuristic quality to it. Do you think that that's going to dictate the work that you show in an online?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be much sexier. I think it has to be. I think it's calling. We're in a place of indulgence, weirdly, right now. where I feel like we're all stuck at home, or like, I know there's quite a few people working, but there's this kind of, like, I'm eating pastries every day. I feel like we're all like, we're eating so much, like we're masturbating so much, we're like having a lot of sex maybe. There's like the, I don't, watching so much, like just like consuming so much, and that it's kind of about this, I don't know, maybe it's like the pit, like our emptiness, and feeling like things don't matter the way we thought they did before, mixed with having all this time.
Right. I mean, and also you spoke you spoke about the generosity of it, or how you think of it in terms of how can I be most generous when I share on a digital format, just because people have so many other options. Like you said, they could be doing anything at home. They could,
Right.
so why would they come to an online show?
Right. Yeah. I don't even go to online shows. So yeah, so I was like, this has to be interesting.
Right.
It has to, I have to want to go. So I'm making a show that I that I would want to go. It's the same as the magazine, really. It's like, let me make a magazine that I would want to be in. Let me have an online show. But then obviously the thing in the show is, it's not going to be a magazine.
Right.
I can't wait for you to go.
I can't wait to go.
Oh my God, can we have a call after you go?
Sure.
I want to know what you think. I'm also thinking about having like a rating on it, like a kind of like, like rated R.
Yeah.
But do you think?
Where you have to like put in your birthday or something to allow access.
I guess so. I wouldn't go to a show where I have to put my birthday in. Like, I'm like, what are you going to do with that? It's like
Right.
very
Yeah.
suspicious. I don't think so.
Collection of information is always suspicious, although all of our information is being collected.
I know, which makes me extremely uncomfortable. But
Me too.
I don't need to perpetuate that. I also kind of feel like, let's just pretend it's Europe, and like, kids can see tits, kids can drink, they'll be fine. They'll know sooner or later.
All the children who attend your online show.
It's actually a kid show. Oh my God, it's actually, you have to put in your birthday and everything, but you have to be a child. Like, you can actually be too old to go to the show. That would be fab.
Right. You have to, or at least be youthful.
Oh my God, wait, what's the age for being youthful?
No, I'm saying it's not a number, but you have to have just like a youthful idealism.
Oh my God, I love that. So it's a question that's actually like, that speaks to like whimsy or rationale.
Right.
Like what would it be?
We're being called into, okay, I think we're going to start a Q&A soon.
Oh wow. And this opens up to everyone who's watching?
Well, I think here we have a moderator.
Hello. I was really enjoying listening in on that. One of the comments actually was just saying they feel like they're friends at a sleepover. So I was listening in on this super secret sleepover conversation. Thank you for that. Yeah, there were a lot of gems that were just dropped just now. And I think like something you said, Martine, about proportionately aspirational is definitely a phrase I'm going to try to take with me.
But we have to create our own aspirations, our own ideals. I think that's like where we're at right now, like in terms of like, I don't know, like proportions of beauty, whether that proportion is like mathematically on our face or like mathematically over our body, or it's just, we need we don't need a new ideal. We need like no ideal or like a personal one.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I was also wondering, so one of the questions we actually have here is about your series, Indigenous Woman, and do you feel invested in continuing that work? Do you see that as something that's just kind of going to be going on in perpetuity, or are you moving on to a new body of work?
I'm moving on. It's over. I'm sorry. We're on good terms though. We're really close friends, but it's over. I think it's like, it's not even just medium. I think it's about career. Like I think instead of the supermodel, she's now a Hollywood actor. I think that's the pivot. It's a career pivot.
Fair enough. Anne Fadden has a question. She's asking, where do all the dolls and mannequins live? And also, do you do your own hair and makeup because you always look gorgeous?
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yes, well, it depends. Usually my own hair and makeup. I have, New York is like a jewelry box. It's like it's just like all these gems kind of like mixed and like forgotten and created, and they're those, I'm speaking the metaphor of people, obviously, and so those people I've become friends with and now can collaborate with, and so I just feel kind of like in awe of my own friends for like their ability to do hair and makeup or like take pictures or, you know, style clothes. But everything in the magazine I did alone. And I think depending on the project, I'm usually doing it by myself, but mostly because I think at the beginning it was insecurity. And like I was like, only I can do my makeup because like only I can like see this thing that I like, that I don't know, desiring as like divine feminine, and only I can like highlight it, and like, and then also like only I want to know the thing that I'm hiding from everyone. Like I don't feel comfortable enough to let someone else, like, you know. And now I think it's more of just like convenience. Kind of like if I'm traveling, obviously I'll do it alone. If I'm in New York and I can pay people, then I'm definitely asking friends, because that's the dream. God, this is a long question. Sorry. Like the dolls, it's like a commune kind of feeling. Some girls stay in my room. Some girls don't want to stay in my room. And they're more comfortable in the living room. And some are in storage. And it's nothing personal. This all revolves because I just don't have enough space to have everyone in my house. I feel like ideally we all can live together, but that's a farm.
And you keep everything? You keep all the mannequins?
Yeah, yes.
When you keep them?
Well, I buy them, so and it's like they're expensive, so I have to take care of them. I have to like, yeah, they get wrapped up, they get cleaned. But I think that I was buying them because it was easier to move them when I needed them. And I tried borrowing from a store once and it just was like so taxing. But I'm very like picky. I'm very picky about like how someone is standing and like their hands. If you start really looking closely at mannequins, you'll find there's different articulation, and it has everything to do with like around the time period the mannequin was made. And there's sometimes it's more about realism, and sometimes it's more about this kind of like anamorphic alien, like non-gender, which you would think would be my zhuzh, but they just don't look alive. There's not it's cool that they don't have eyes. It's cool they don't have a face, but you know, it doesn't read as a person anymore. It becomes just like sculpture. It really points out how representational like a mannequin is as just like this thing to help with commerce.
Mm.
A model. They're a model. That's what a model does, is what a mannequin does.
Mm.
You just show up and you wear what they make you wear and you work it.
Well, related to the wearing, the clothing, another question was about your grandparents' clothes and textiles, and just wondering about the significance of you taking that wardrobe and using it in your own shoots.
Yeah, I feel like the textiles, it's funny the way, looking at the way things are written, it has to be kind of like my grandmother's this, my mother's that, and I guess that's how we talk about belongings. But our house, the way our house was set up, it was kind of like a mess. And then downstairs, the basement was kind of like this, I don't know, like dragon layer of like a shipwreck or something, like broken stuff, but like boxes, like kind of like crates and boxes of stuff, and stuff specifically from Guatemala, from when my parents would do relief work, and they would buy textiles or like bags or headbands to be sold in the States to raise money so they were both architects. And after one of the really large earthquakes, before I was born, my dad went to Berkeley and brought a bunch of students with him to rebuild and do like sustainable building and practices that used, you know, materials native to the land, and so everything would be much more affordable. And my mom was one of those students, and it was like a heat of passion, you know. I feel like he was like Antonio Banderas or something, like just like
Swept her off her feet.
Yeah, like can you imagine, like, oh my God, like bleeding heart, and he's telling people what to do, and he's kind of young, like that's hot. My dad was really fishy when he was younger. Like I look a lot like him.
Fishy.
Yeah, like, you know, pretty. You know, like femme. He's like I feel like he was a very pretty man, which has made my life easier, but genetically speaking. Yeah, I don't know. Textiles, anyway, we're in those boxes in like the basement. And they just became, it was less about lineage, and it wasn't even about, like they felt precious, but not in a way in it, like a dowry would feel precious, but as like texturally like old, you know, like something that had been around for a long time and felt like it had a story within it that I don't know, that was magic. And so, you know, these scarves became capes, and these like belts became bracelets or necklaces or hair or whatever they needed to be. And it was I think that was kind of the beginning of me thinking about color and really looking at color as something that didn't have the science of like color theory or a color wheel, but was like tactile. Because these were like heavy cottons, like even like the materiality of these things, like they're so well made because they were older. And I think that has to do with like early trading to do weavings. A lot of those cottons I think may have been from Germany or something. And they were just really high quality. Now if you go to the market, it's like crap. It's like everything is like nylon, and so nothing lasts, and it's just not like, I don't know, it's sad.
Christopher Kyo asks, Martine is a work of art in a virtual and literal sense. What serves as an inspiration for a new project? A lot of flattery in these questions.
Oh
Well
wow.
earned.
I start to cry. I'm like, it's fine, thank you. Wow. What the question was, what serves as inspiration
for a new project
in the newest? I'm giving you a hint right now. This is a hint happening right now. I feel like I shouldn't say any more.
A hint is fair. We appreciate that. Another question, let's see, is so Rachel Stern says, I am sharing your work with my intro to photo students just for fun. Do you have an assignment or prompt you would give to young photographers trying to find their voice? I think of you and your work as having such a clear voice and not playing by any rules, and want my students to be on that trip. Also, best lecture style ever.
Oh my gosh, wow. A prompt for a class. I'm trying to think. My major was printmaking, so I feel like the prompts we had in class just don't apply. Maybe something in black and white, like asking everyone to shoot. Like, I love the idea of setting a parameter or several parameters, and so you're forced to kind of be extra creative. I think it's the way that I work innately, and sometimes I'm not aware of it. I'm like, oh, why did I make all these rules? And it's kind of to like create something new. But I feel like black and white isn't enough as a rule. Well, no one can go outside, right? Or something. I mean, we all go outside. We just maybe it's their bathroom. Like they have to take a self-portrait in their bathroom in black and white, but they can't be in it. Their face can't be in it. You're gonna get a lot of nudes. I feel like they can't be in it. That's it. That's all you say.
That's all you said.
I'm so curious. I'm like, can you email these to me?
See those?
Yeah, I feel like it forces you to kind of look at the objects in this room that I feel like usually we identify as pretty gross, and yet like bathing, and so like it's like crucial, and like going to the bathroom is crucial, like brushing our teeth, like it's kind of like gross, like we shed and kind of like leak all these things in this one room, and yet it's so personal as a space and private.
I think that that advice to young artists and that ending on that note of that privacy, that beautiful privacy, is a great place for us to wrap up. Thank you so much, Martine, and thank you, Nadiah, for a really invigorating conversation. I'll just remind everyone that in the chat, there's a discount code for 30% off of Native America. So please feel free to follow that link. And also, again, remind you all that next Thursday at 7, we're going to have the final talk in the series between Alan Michelson and Chrissy Isles, who also contributed to this issue. So with that being said, so appreciate your time and wishing everyone a good night.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks, Martine. It's always good to see you.
You too.